Thanks, Aino, for joining us to this interview. I'm very happy to see you. And in case people don't know you exactly, can you introduce yourself?
I can indeed. Yeah, so my name is Aino Corry. I'm Danish. I'm 54 years old. I have a PhD in computer science that I do not use anymore. I have been teaching since 98, both in industry and academia. Now I'm teaching the teachers of computer science how to teach computer science. And I have been facilitating for more than 20 years, and that's why I've written this book about retrospective anti-patterns, about all the mistakes that I've made when I facilitate, so that you don't have to do my mistakes.
Like in general, there are lots of books on facilitation, on advice how teams can be more productive or have a better life. But in general, is there a survivorship bias? So do people only write about stuff that has worked for them and too little about the stuff that didn't?
Well, there's so many answers to this. I think there's a survivorship bias on so many levels. So people really like to talk about their successes because it makes them feel good. People like to read good stories about successes because it gives them hope about what they can do. But it's also like when I had to publish this book, I had decided that this book was the anti-patterns that I've seen defining themselves as patterns in the retrospectives that I facilitate. And I wanted to sell this idea to the publisher. And they said, that sounds so negative. Can't you give us a book about the good things? And I said, well, there are like 10 very good books about how to facilitate out there already. That's not what we need right now. We need to hear from people's mistakes, honest mistakes, and how can we avoid them, or how can we overcome them if we end into them. So I think there's a survivor's bias both in the people who tell the stories, but also in the people who have to print the stories.
Yeah, but you somehow managed to convince your publisher.
Yes.
To persistence.
I managed to convince one publisher.
Well, that's enough, right?
And that's enough, yes. But I think that the survivorship bias is also connecting it a bit to my talk at the Software Architecture Gathering. My talk is about the Lord of the Rings, or what we should have learned from Lord of the Rings. And in there, I start and end the talk about the problem with survivorship bias, that we hear about all these great stories and we get inspired to do exactly the same as the people who've done well. But there's a lot of things we do not know. So I wouldn't say they hide a lot of stuff, but there are some things that might not have gone so well, but that's not what people choose to tell. And that's not what you hear. So I think it's a good question, because it's both about my books and about my presentation.
Like talking about failure and stuff that didn't work. Would you recommend people do this more often? Talk about failures and kind of find a way not to avoid this conversation, but to take value out of it?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I mean, the whole idea of me promoting retrospectives as a way to learn and as a way to improve is really to promote trying to make an environment in your team where you feel safe enough and you have enough trust to talk about the things that didn't go so well, so that the other people in the team can learn about it, but also actually to sometimes share this with the rest of the organization, but also actually sometimes to share this with a lot of other people in a conference, for instance.
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah. There's this strategy of vulnerability to promote trust, which is risky.
Yeah.
Kind of, if it works, it does work well, right?
Yes, and it really is true that this the vulnerability supports the trust, and the trust supports empowerment, and empowerment supports good quality of work. And I mean personally, and also in my work as a coach, and also when I was a developer previously, I noticed that if you yourself is brave enough to show vulnerability, to talk about the things that you don't know, you don't understand, mistakes you've made, you actually give others the feeling that they can talk about those things as well. And then we can start talking about things that didn't go quite well before everything just goes completely terrible. And it's much better to see these things as small things along the way, instead of suddenly everything breaks down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is there a general positive tendency, because you've probably worked with lots of teams, and you know, like, there is always this moment when you start working with a team and you kind of assess like where are they on this like maturity level of like good teamwork and, you know, actual collaboration. And in general, has it improved, like the situation that you enter teams?
Do you mean over the years?
Over the years? Yeah, is there?
Yes, I really think so. So I started in industry in 2001, so that's almost 25 years ago. And back then, in the teams that I were in, it was much more this cowboy way of working. You had to be a hero, you had to be good, you could make mistakes, and we could laugh at people who made mistakes. And I remember being quite shocked when people talked about psychological safety in the beginning. It seemed like a foreign thing to me in IT. Embarrassing to say, but that's how it was. And I thought that'll never work. So I'm quite surprised, and really happily surprised, how much this whole psychological safety, on whatever level people understand it and implement it, right? It works so well for people. It works so well for the human beings. It works so well for the teams, and it works so well for the actual products that come out. Because as we talked about before, we feel brave enough to talk about the things that don't work, and we get them fixed. So I think there's been a huge, in the past 25 years, at least where I've seen, growth in that. But I also have to say that I've been a consultant for the past 14 years. And when you are a consultant, you're not sent out to the places where everything works well and people are happy, right? Because then they don't hire a consultant. So I've maybe seen a lot of bad cases as well, but even the bad cases I've seen in the past 14 years are still better than what I saw 25 years ago.
So that's good news. There is better awareness, and some practices are kind of common sense today.
Yes, and as I said before, however people choose to interpret and implement it, right? It's not all perfectly done. It's not always perfectly understood, but at least we're striving in that direction.
So I have this question that I've been working in few teams throughout my career as well, and I felt like this whenever I reached a certain like quality of collaboration, I always felt very uneasy when I entered an environment where I felt like that is a step back. So do people have the tendency in your experience to kind of not settle for like a worse environment, especially when it comes to like the teamwork and psychological aspects of the environment? Could that be a reason for this improvement, that people tend to kind of also promote practices even though they are not like in the job role of a team coach or something?
I think there's definitely something there, right? It's about, do you accept that things are like they are? Mm-hmm. And once you've tasted how it is, right, to have it like that, you can really feel the negativity of not having it. It's a bit like you've been flying a lot of times and it's fine. Suddenly you try to fly business class, right? You should never have done that, because whenever you don't do that anymore, it feels really shy. And it's a bit like that also with teams, that if you have been in a team where there is psychological safety, where you can talk about things, where you can try things out, and people don't look down at you for your ideas or your failures, and suddenly being, as you said, in an environment where it's not like that, you really want to change it. So I think that you're right. Everybody becomes like a change agent in that sort. When they've tried something good, it spreads like a good virus.
Yeah. And maybe like comparing having such a change agent on a team versus having an external coach who tries to make a team work. Probably ideally is you have both. You have a coach and
yes,
kind of. But if you had to choose for a team what they get, one person who is like seen a good place or a good coach, would you make a decision which you would rather give a team?
Because I'm a consultant, I'll say it depends. Okay. Right.
Sure.
Because if you look at Linda Rising's brilliant book about embracing change, fearless change, right? The patterns that they have there in the book about how to actually introduce and embrace change without fear in an organization there's both a pattern for having an insider who is there all the time and who is listening to every negative little things that comes up and can like react to it all the time. Plus, it's somebody who is in it with you. Like they're experiencing the same problem with going to this station or having to communicate about that or having to explain things go wrong. So they're in it together. They have skin in the game, so that can be a very good way of convincing people that it's actually possible. On the other hand, sometimes getting somebody from the outside, perhaps somebody who has got a name already or people believe in what they say is true, can also have a good effect on a team. So it really depends on the situation. It also depends a lot on the change agent as a person. Are they somebody who can actually introduce this change in a good way, in a positive, in a constructive way, or are they just complaining about other people's behavior, right? So, yeah.
So it depends. Very good.
It depends, yeah.
Did you ever meet a team where working together productively just wouldn't ever happen? Does such thing as like truly incompatible people, does that exist?
I think so. I would like to say no. If you hired me, I could make everything work. But I would like to say that everybody can learn to work together under the right circumstances, in the right context, with the right resources and the right environment and the right skill set. But I don't really think it's true, because there are some people who just rub each other in the wrong way when it comes to their personality, and it's difficult to change personality. People from very different cultures, and I'm not talking about different countries, but maybe different cultures, from where they, like, what company they come from, where they studied, what kind of education they have, what they've experienced before, the things that have formed them in their life. I've worked with teams where I think these people will never work well together. They will never trust each other.
So the last resort sometimes maybe to decide maybe we should change the setup to get to a productive end. Does it have to do with values maybe? Is it important that like people working together at least share on a personal level some values?
I think so. I really do think so, because that's one of the things that I see, that if people laugh at very different things, for instance, that can really be problematic. And in those cases, I think it is true to split the team. But when it comes to, when you say the last resort is to split the team, I'm thinking about Heidi Helfand's book about teams, like what's it called, restructuring teams or live teams. You can look it up. There's a little quiz for you later. So Heidi Helfand wrote in her book about teams that it's actually not necessarily a bad thing that teams change. It demands a little bit of work, but it can actually be healthy and it can be constructive to accept it when you go into a team or when you create a team, that it might change.
Okay, so it's not like a failure of finding a way. It's just one of the ways to find a solution. Like one thing that struck me when I researched you and what you wrote about was this little note about these animals that you put on covers of books you write.
Yes.
I have also some superficial knowledge about like these octopuses. They are pretty intelligent, you know. They've been like these experiments, and they show like these signs. But I really find them truly alien as animals. So I rather feel scared, and I actually wouldn't be excited to meet an octopus like when swimming in the ocean. What's your fascination with these animals?
I think my fascination with them is that they are so alien. I really find the brain and the mind and the intelligence really, really interesting, because we just as human beings have so many different ways of thinking, of being intelligent, of using our minds. I think that's really fascinating. And then when I started reading about the octopuses, I thought, this is really a weird way of having a brain. It's like a much more physical way of having a brain, in a sense that, imagine that each skin cell, they can choose to change the color and change how each skin cell goes up and down, and they can grow new tentacles, and it's amazing how they can hunt together, they can live alone, they can use tools. I just think it's so fascinating. And I have met octopuses while snorkeling, and I really enjoy it when I do.
So they're nice?
They're really, really sweet.
Okay.
And they don't say bad things to you.
Okay. To wrap it up, we will be seeing you at the conference in Berlin. I'm already looking forward to seeing you there. Is there anything particular you're kind of happy to see, a speaker or a certain talk that you're looking forward to?
Yes, well, I always like to talk to and listen to Claire Sudbury, because I think this technical coaching is so interesting. Now, I've been an agile coach for so long, and I really feel like just having an agile coach is not enough, right? Because we force these people to be agile, to inspect and adapt, but if they don't have the technical ability to adapt to what they see, it's just frustrating. So definitely Claire Sudbury, but also Jackie Reed. I saw a talk from her at another conference about her communication patterns, and it's a bit like the things that I write about in my book about retrospectives, anti-patterns. It's about how do these weird minds of the people, how do they actually work? When you talk to somebody, what do they hear? What should you say to make them hear what you want them to hear? How can we optimize this so difficult thing that is communication? So I'm definitely looking forward to both Jackie Reed and Claire Sudbury, and seeing you, of course, Richard, at the conference.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a very good final word. Aino, thank you very much for this interview, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person in Berlin at the Software Architecture Gathering.
Thank you. See you there.